Our top story this morning, the five main party leaders have one last chance tonight to confront each other on the same stage. The English language debate goes at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's also the leaders' second pressure-filled encounter in as many nights. Last night, the French language debate. Among the official topics were climate, the cost of living, cultural identity, and mandatory vaccines. The other leaders also pushed hard to put the Liberals' Justin Trudeau on the defensive over calling the election in a pandemic. For his take on last night and what we can expect looking forward to tonight's English debate, we're joined now live, Marty Patriquin. He is a Quebec correspondent for The Logic, and we've reached him in Montreal. Good to see you again, Marty.
Hi, John.
Let's talk about this. The second one in French, yes. The first one geared towards a national audience. Let's talk about who you think, which leader you think might have done the best.
The debate was such that there were a lot of restrictions, a lot of constraints, and it actually made for a debate that, not necessarily the most fiery thing in the world, but that at least people weren't talking over, or that at least the talking over was kept to a minimum. The one thing that stuck out to me, and I noticed it right away when I was trying to think about something, what would be the moment déclencheur, as they say in French, was the confrontation between Mr. Blanchet from the Bloc Québécois and Justin Trudeau on the issue of being Québécois. That came up, and it's like red meat in this province. So, Trudeau coming out and saying, "You won't accuse me of not being Québécois, Mr. Blanchet," and really, really getting aggravated and angry and fiery. And I was like, well, that's going to be the Journal de Montréal cover tomorrow. And sure enough, there it was. So that was the one moment. I mean, unfortunately, because there's a lot of other very important issues, but that was the one moment that really sort of stuck out for me.
People watching closely to see how Conservative leader Erin Otoole might do, and according to our JP Tasker, he says his party is quite pleased with how he did. Not a francophone, but what did you make of his performance?
Well, it's two things. His French is fine. Look, the axiom that I've always said was that your French has to be good enough to be understood, but bad enough to be pitied. And Erin Otoole fit in that Venn diagram very, very well. I think his French is fine. I was talking to the Chase producer here last night and sort of saying, I have a feeling that a lot of the leaders are going to go after Mr. Otoole, given the fact that he's managed to he's a demonstrably better campaigner who is selling a more palatable platform than Andrew Scheer in 2019. It didn't really pan out that way because he sort of sunk himself. I understand that this is a national debate for francophones, but the vast majority of francophones are here in Quebec. And the one thing that Mr. Toole came out and said, we're essentially, the message was we're going to defund daycares and give tax credits to people to people with lesser means. The daycare system in Quebec is the closest thing to a sacred cow that we have. And to say that you're going to defund it in any means doesn't earn you any votes. The other thing, too, is that he doesn't realize is that daycare is means tested in this province. It's not universal $10, but you get tax credits already. And his answer, while he very well know the ins and outs of Quebec's daycare system, his answer suggested that he didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Not a good moment for him at all. For anybody, for Quebecers watching him last night, there was nothing in that statement that made him more politically palpable today than it did yesterday.
Of course, Quebec important for all the leaders, but Yves-François Blanchet, a unique position there, saying that he wants 40 of Quebec's 78 seats in the House of Commons. So let's talk about what his ambitions mean in that regard and what it means for the other party leaders.
He sort of telegraphed it a couple of times last night that he really wants there to be another minority government. He says that's the best way for the Bloc Québécois to get what Quebecers want, and it's good for Quebec when there's a minority parliament in Ottawa. 40 seats, I would suggest, is a bit optimistic right now. A lot of the seats that he won off the island of Montreal, in fact, most of them, because he didn't really win very many, if any at all, on the island, were very closely held races between the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois. What you're seeing now is the Liberals are sort of staying, if not getting ahead a little, and the NDP holding their own. So you're going to see a situation between here and Quebec City, between Montreal and Quebec City, where there's going to be a lot of three-way races on it. There's no way I do not see a situation where those are all going to sort of tilt towards Bloc Québécois' favor.
The other factor in this, of course, looking back in history, 2011, the NDP leader, Jack Layton, the orange wave of becoming official opposition. Big chunk of that reason was the wave that took place in Quebec. Let's talk about Jagmeet Singh and what the stakes are for him and what he needs to do for his own orange wave.
There's not going to be an orange wave, and I think even the NDP types will say that. They'll say it more than tacitly. I think they'll say it out loud. That was lightning in a bottle year, and I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that. That said, he's actually done a lot better, I think, here, trying to capture that progressive vote. He's done a much better job than I would have said he would. The cards are stacked against him. Look, this is the province that passed a so-called laïcité or secularism bill. Mr. Singh wouldn't be able to teach in a classroom or guard a prison cell or be a lawyer for the Quebec government because of the religion that he practices. That law is very, very popular here, and unfortunately, it goes against him. That said, he's done a lot. As I said, he's done a lot better, and it's actually quite heartening to know that there's still a fair bit of political space open to him, and I think the NDP realizes that. Now, does that translate into votes? I'm not sure, but suffice to say, it's going to make the race a lot more interesting.
A figure who wasn't on the debate floor, but did cast a shadow over it, arguably, People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier. He didn't have the necessary 4% in the polls to be allowed in the debates at the time, but now he's ahead of the Greens in the polls. So let's talk about what role he could play, I guess potentially aimed at the Conservatives, but walk us through how important he might be in the final analysis.
You know, it's interesting. Most of the sort of the thinking behind it is that they are robbing the conservative vote, and I'm not necessarily sure that the Conservatives at this point necessarily want that fringe vote. The other interesting thing about it, and it's a phenomenon that you sort of saw in the United States during the 2016 election, where the Bernie vote went to Trump. There is some evidence, certainly on the West Coast, that the Green vote is tilting towards PPC right now, which is fascinating and not something I would have predicted. As far as Quebec is concerned, I think Mr. Bernier is he remains popular in the area where he is from. That is the Beauce. He didn't win; he lost his riding last time around. But they're doing a lot better than I thought they would. And the other interesting thing too, of course, is that in trying to make the Conservatives their platform more palatable, they flip-flopped on issues like guns. That vote, that sort of bit about the true pro-gun people in the country, that is like red meat for the PPC, and you can almost hear them deserting the Conservative Party for the PPC.
Yeah, and as you say, not just in Quebec, but in many parts of the country, arguably as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. English language debate tonight. We're, as I was saying earlier, about 250 hours away from the actual vote itself. So let's talk about what we should be watching for.
Look, I think Otoole has to really come up. I think Trudeau had the latter part of the debate last night had to get a pretty good job, and I think did a pretty good job in sort of selling and pointing out that yes, he might be a little bit behind in the polls, but the Liberal base is fairly strong. I think Otoole sort of has to take a hack at that. We're playing for the 905 right now. Where this is the area, like we love to talk about Quebec and everything and how important Quebec is, and it is. Vastly more important, I think, is the area around the 416, the 905 in Ontario, and I think you're going to see a direct play to the voters there tonight.
Okay, lots to watch for. Marty Patriquin, Quebec correspondent for The Logic. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.